Welcome to the channel. First of all, I recommend you to subscribe so you don't miss any content. In this video, I will explain everything about PTC, from the basics to more advanced topics that will be of great help. We will be looking at what are PTC, if you can make money with this kind of platforms, how to analyze them, and the best strategy to work on these sites. Let's go with the first point. What are PTC? Basically, they are advertising sites. In this type of business, a PTC site acts as an intermediary between an advertiser and visitors. An advertiser is the one who seeks traffic to a product or platform of his interest, and he pays a sum for the impressions of his ads to the PTC site. Visitors are those who register on the site, visit the advertisement, and thus earn a commission of what the advertiser funded. They are usually 0.001 cents for each ad. This means that we can, through constancy and habit to work them, generate income in a medium-long term. But you have to be careful, because in this type of sites, there are also frauds and scams. With this I mean that when new sites come out, or even those that are already in the market, when we work them for a while, at the end they do not pay us. Anyway, in those that allow us to cancel payments not made, we could exchange them for advertising credits to advertise other sites or any platform where we are being paid in term. And in this way, we would not lose out at all. Now, having said that, let's move on to the next point. Is it possible to earn money with these sites? The answer is yes, it is possible to earn money with this type of platforms, but as long as they are thoroughly analyzed and you have a strategy that is profitable. That these 2 points I will be explaining later. Although this type of sites, I do not recommend them to impatient people. Let's move on to the next point, which is how to analyze them. Here I am going to give you a series of tips that will help you to find the last PTC, where it will be very likely that they are paying and in which we have been paid at least once. The first thing is to make sure that the PTCs have good scripts and a professional design. These 2 points show that they had a higher investment to create the platforms, and this will usually mean that they will be maintained over time. Also that they spend money on advertising, have promotional tools, accept multiple payment processors, and if possible, that they have a forum. These points are very important, because the more the PTC is promoted, and the more accessible it is for the majority of users in the world, it will generate more traffic for advertisers who pay for the advertising service, and consequently it will be that the PTC will last longer. Another positive point would be to have Telegram groups, or WhatsApp, social networks and YouTube channels. And finally, check them on several monitors to follow their reputation. This will be explained better in the next point. Let's go with the last one, which would be the best strategy. Here I am going to explain the strategy that I use, with which I consider to be more effective when it comes to work them, and thus, reach the minimum payment. The first recommendation is, to give priority to the PTC, that have to rent referrals. In this way, is how we are going to decrease the lapse of time, investing in people, or bots, simulating people, that will be our referrals, and that will have a duration of 30 days. By working them day by day and watching them, we will know if the people or bots that they offer us as referrals are profitable or not. If they are, in an average of 15 days approximately, we will have recovered again what we produced and we would rent again. To the previously rented referrals we would already leave them until they finish their time, although we could activate the auto payment optionally. With it, they would take longer to diminish. The second recommendation would be that the habit of the referral income is executed for a defined time of up to 3 or 4 times after the first income. Since the PTC, in general, let rent every 7 or 10 days, and mathematically, we could make compound interest renting on the rent. For example, 30 days that each referral lasts, equals 4 weeks in the month, and if the rent is renewed after 7 days, and we rent again, this would be equivalent to 4 rents during the month, which would be approximately 28 days. The effect of this strategy would be to reach the minimum payment as soon as possible, since if we worked without renting, we would have to reach the minimum during 2, or in several cases, even more than 3 months. It should be noted that not all the PTC have to rent referrals, therefore, this strategy would not work for them, and neither would it work if the referrals are not profitable, since in some, the people or bots, which offer us as referrals, are not so active or directly are not. This type of platforms can be searched and followed in monitors. am going to name the 3 monitors that I use, and I will tell you how a PTC would be analyzed. Well, these would be the 3 monitors that I use to search for PTC, so I can analyze them. This one called foxerating.com, this one called nikonrating.com, and this one called booksevolution.top. In the monitors, the only thing I do is, for example in this one, I go to the menu, I go to Money Finance, I go to Rewarding Website, I go to PTC, Paid to Click, and where it says, Entry, on Foxerating, I click, and here I simply see the last PTCs that were booked during the last days. The ones that give better results when analyzing them, almost always are the ones that have more stars with a green arrow, although in the others that do not mention anything, they could also be analyzed because in the worst case, as I mentioned before, if in those PTC that let us cancel payments not made, we work it and we do not charge, we could use the balance to buy credits to advertise other PTC, or any platform that we are using, that is giving us good results. In this other page, what I do is to come here in Categories, PTC Site, and here you will also see the new PTCs scheduled up to the moment, and in this other one, also, the same thing, just by entering the page, you will see the last PTCs scheduled. When you register in the PTC, what you always have to take into account are 6 points, schedule or server restart, minimum payout, cached point, grids or grid game, rented referrals, and if they have or not, advocacy. The schedule or server restart is very important because it indicates at what time the advertisements already seen for the next day will be restarted again. It should be noted that the restart time is always the same for all countries, the only thing that changes is the time that takes each country. For example, if a PTC is restarted at 11 a.m. Argentina time, it would restart at 9 a.m. Colombia time, since between these two countries, there are 2 hours difference. The minimum payment is important to take into account because if we carry out the strategy, depending on whether the minimum payment is low, we would get paid sooner. Cached points are withdrawal points, which basically would be like a kind of additional restriction that the PTC has in order to request payment. I understand that this could be somewhat tedious when it comes to having the balance and not being able to access it for lack of cached points, although it is easy to get them through offers and tasks that they have in other sections. Personally, I take it as one more PTC, since I usually visit only the sections to see advertising to get those cached points, although for those who have a lot of patience to complete some offer or task, there are those who give more cached points, depending on the offer or task. But something negative is that even if there are several PTC that have cached points, or that require withdrawal points, at least, in the sections that I visualize, which are basically bits wall, clicks wall, offers for all and skip ads, they can only be visible once a day for only one PTC, that is to say, if there are 2 or 3 PTC with these restrictions, these visualizations could be executed only for one of them. The grids, or grid game, are quite interesting because we could win some cents or extra prizes just by viewing them. Generally the biggest prizes range from $1 to $5 in some PTC. It is very important to know that there are 2 types of grids or grid game. One is the one I mentioned, that by viewing advertising, if you get the prize, you win. The other type of grids only rewards you with credits, which are generally used for advertising, but they do not have cash prizes, which is what interests you the most. Therefore, it is recommended that when analyzing if a PTC has a grid, we only focus on those that reward with money and not with credits. The RR, or rented referrals, are important to be able to carry out the strategy I mentioned. When a PTC requires that you do not leave it to another tab or another web page so that the counter continues, this means that it has advocacy, because it forces you to stay in that ad so that the counter runs, or else it stops running. There are also PTC sites that have semi-advocacy, which means that if you move to another tab or go to another web page, the counter does not run. However, if the tab where the counter is located, independent of the others, even if you navigate in the background, the counter runs the same. Taking into account these 6 points, the important thing is to have patience, since there are usually between 7 to 10 PTC sites per week, so it will be worthwhile to analyze them. To finish, there is a channel that is this one, PTCs, in which I recommend you to go to investigate it. It explains uniformly how to download and configure an interesting tool. For those who have questions or concerns with any PTC, We invite you to the Hats Up group where you can interact with people who are already dabbling in this, or to have a direct deal with me. We leave the link to the group here below in detail or comments of this video. And if you are interested in this business of the advertising industry, I recommend you to subscribe, to be informed as soon as possible of new PTC sites. See you soon.